welcome to another edition of Lab Rats. My name is Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
And this is the show where we demystify technology, and occasionally we show you some pretty advanced tips that will probably frighten most small puppies and children in the playground across the street. However, we're still committed to you becoming the biggest geeks possible, so today we're going to talk about advanced... It's a look on his face.
We're going to frighten children and puppies?
Well, advanced Mac tips will always frighten people.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
But today, no.
It shouldn't frighten you.
It
really shouldn't.
And you'll be better humans for it. But so recently I got myself a MacBook Pro, and actually I have to say that I'm enjoying that experience as much as I had berated the Apple world for years and years and years. I really am adjusting to it quite quickly, and I do enjoy it. Sean has kindly offered to show me the ins and outs of the expert world of the Macintosh.
Yeah, slightly more advanced. Now the one thing, we sort of play up the Mac versus PC thing here, but really they're just tools. They're ways of interacting with the world. They're different operating systems. They do the same thing for a lot of the things that you need to do. It's just a question of understanding how you do those things, and we're going to show you how to do those things rather than sort of making fun of Windows wieners.
That's right. We're all wieners in the end. We're all tools in the end, frankly.
We are.
Especially you. But anyway, let's get on with that. So today on the show, Sean's going to take us through some real key tips, some stuff I didn't really know about the Macintosh, and so you're going to love this episode. So let's take a break, and when we come back, advanced tips for the Mac. Today on
Lab Rats.
Well, before we get started, let's talk about a great deal we have for you at hover.com, a place where you can get domains registered and email hosted and that sort of thing. I have over there, wirelesstips.com, technologytips.com, and a whole bunch of other domains. I think I have a portfolio of 45 domains that I keep there.
Ooh, that's a lot of domains.
It is a lot of domains. But it doesn't cost me a whole lot because I use this coupon right here, which saves you 10% off your domain purchases and, of course, your email. So if you want to get your name at a special email.com, you want to use that coupon right here. All right, let's get on with the show. Advanced Mac tips. I'm very, very excited about this because it's going to be highly educational for me and, of course, our friends out there in Lab Rats land.
Yeah, so a while back we did an episode on the beginner's guide to switching to the Mac. So a lot of people are making the switch because they've seen the ads, they want to go over to Mac and find out what it's all about. So again, as we said off the top, it's a very similar experience to Windows in a lot of ways. There's just different ways of doing the things that you used to do and whatnot. We're going to look at a few of the more advanced features here.
Okay, good.
And one of the things that we didn't talk about in the first
installment
of this is something that a lot of people complain about when they move to the Mac, and that is it's only got a single button. How can you live with a single button? Because a lot of people on Windows are used to...
That drove me crazy.
Yes.
When I first got my very first iMac way back in 2005, I'm like, how do I right-click? You can't. Well, actually, you can.
You can. You've always been able to. There's a couple things on here. Number one, they've always had a single button here. So if you got this right here, you've got like a Mac that has a single button on here.
Yes.
This is not two, unlike some of the Windows ones that look like one but are left and right on the same button.
That's one button.
So it's a single button, and the Mac has always been like that from a hardware perspective.
Yeah.
Now, that's switched a little bit with mice on things like the iMac that have a left and a right click on the mouse itself that comes in the box.
I bought a Magic Mouse recently, and it has a left and right click.
Exactly. Now, the thing is, the operating system, OS X, has always been able to do secondary click, is what it's called. So that's right click on the Windows machine.
Right.
And it gives you a whole pile of context menus which you don't get with the single click. So there's another key sequence you can hit to get that, but it's much easier to hit right click if you've got the mouse.
Yeah.
Now, when you buy a Mac out of the box, often they're set to only do single click, but you can switch it so that it isn't.
Okay, so how are you going to do that, Sean?
Well, the first thing I need to do is I need to add a second mouse to this right here.
Yeah.
So I've actually got a Mac mouse. So if you've got an iMac, this is the first thing you're going to be plugging into your machine. So
yeah.
You notice on the control panel here, you've got keyboard and mouse and trackpad. So if you're using a MacBook, you'll have the trackpad option. If you're plugging in a mouse, either with the MacBook or with your iMac, you'll have the mouse option. So let's go over here to mouse in this case. So you'll notice here you've got a few settings here for the various sides of it. Now, the mice from Macintosh have, for the last little bit, had both a left and a right button, but they both act as a single button. For legacy reasons. So you'll notice if you go to the control panel here, both left and right say primary button. So it'll look like you've only got a single click here no matter what you're hitting. So if you go over to the left, it says primary button, right says primary button, but look, let's change that to secondary button. So now we've got a secondary click. So now instead of just the left button, which is basically select, we have a context menu. So if we right click on something, we have the context menu shows up here. We can copy it, we can move it to trash, we can get info. Whereas if we change this back to primary button, which was just a single click, and do the same thing, it's just basically we're selecting, nothing happens. So
Okay, I got it.
first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to set secondary click on this if you have a Mac mouse on this. I think if you plug in any other company's mouse like a Logitech or Microsoft, it'll automatically set up the secondary mouse button by default because that's what it expects. So, but with Macintosh products, I think there's this whole legacy of thinking. Steve Jobs wanted you to have only one mouse button, so it'll do that. So.
Okay, got it. Okay, cool. All right, now I know there's a whole new arena around gestures, and I guess this applies more to the laptop type of folks.
Right, and we hinted at this when we did the first episode on this.
yeah.
So if we go over to the trackpad now instead, we've got a few things here. We've got 1 finger, 2 fingers, 3 fingers, and 4 fingers. So the nice thing about a multi-touch trackpad here allows you to do several different things with it. So in the past, you just had 1 finger that you went around on your trackpad and moved it around and then clicked with your button. Now I've got the one with an actual physical button. You have a new one that has the entire pad is a button.
That's right.
That works the same sort of way. So
Sure.
1 finger, you can tap to click, so that's on the Windows does this a lot. When you just go tap on the thing, it'll actually select things and actually act as a click. I always turn that off because I find that a bit annoying, but you can re-enable it here if you want. From a 2 fingers perspective, so you can have gestures where you have 2 fingers to scroll, so 2 fingers down the trackpad.
I love that feature.
Yeah, and you know what the
Great for scrolling down web pages.
It's amazing, and the thing is, I go to my Windows machine and I keep doing 2
do the same
fingers
thing,
on the trackpad, and I'm like, why is this so primitive?
Yeah.
So the other thing with 2 fingers is you can rotate, so you do this around the side and pinch open and close, just like you would do on your iPhone. You can do this, you can do
So
this.
they've adapted all the touch technology into this functionality.
Essentially, and if you can do a screen zoom and a secondary click. So with these old ones, you've got, again, the one that does all of it is a click, but this one, to do this, you would 2 fingers down and click. That's your secondary click if you don't have the mouse on this.
Yeah.
And
so 2 fingers down, you leave one touching, and you click with the right hand.
No, both fingers down and click at the same time while both are touching, and that's your secondary click. So that's a right click even if you don't have it. And again, I've tried doing that on a Windows machine and been like,
Ding!
Why?
What a great feature.
So, and then 3 fingers, you'll notice here it's a swipe to navigate. So if we click on that, it'll show you how to do that. You just swipe side to side to navigate forward and back inside your web browser.
Right.
And 4 fingers is swipe up and down for expose and swipe left and right switch applications. So if we
So what happens if you do jazz hands?
If you do jazz hands, not much
10
happens,
fingers.
unfortunately. So yeah, so if you do all 4 fingers, if you've got expose set up, it'll just fly all of your windows out of the picture there.
Get out of the way.
Right.
Okay, good. I hear that there's a very cool tool on the Mac that I haven't really played with much yet called Disk Utility.
Disk Utility.
And I think we've covered this a little bit before.
A little bit.
But tell me why I would use Disk Utility and what magic can I conjure up?
Well, Disk Utility is good for a few reasons. Now, people are adding disks to their machines on an ongoing basis.
This is like adding hard disks externally?
Yeah, so external hard disk, an internal hard disk, a USB key, and sometimes you may want to format them, or if things are being a little bit wonky on your machine, you might want to do something like check your permissions on here. Actually, it's under Applications and then down to Utilities. And I've actually put a shortcut to that directly in my Finder, and we can show you how to do that later on. Go down to Disk Utility, open it up, and now we've got this control panel for all of your disks. Now, on the Windows side of things, this is more advancing on Windows as well. So if you want to add a new disk to your machine, you would go into your control panel, computer management, disk administration, and then you'd have a list of disks that you can do in there. So again, this is not simple on the Windows side of things.
Yeah.
So over on the left-hand column here, you've got all the things that are attached to your system, whether they're USB keys, internal media like your hard drive, or any external hard drives that you have plugged in here. So you would click on that drive to do things to it. So now over on the right-hand panel here, you have a few options. You've got first aid. So now you can verify your disk permissions and repair your disk permissions. Now, if your system is wonking out a little bit, this is a Linux-based system rather than Windows-based system. So it uses permissions per folder and per disk, which is read, write, execute. And sometimes those things can get a little bit messed up, and then weird things can happen. So it doesn't hurt every so often to go through here and verify them, make sure everything is the way it should be, and then repair them. You can just go straight to repair, and it'll just automatically fix up everything you need to. If you wanted to do something more drastic to your disk, for example, you wanted to erase your disk, reformat it, do this on a secondary disk rather than your main disk usually.
Yes.
You would go over to erase, and it'll give you the options for here. Right now, it's telling us not to do that.
Yes, good.
You can do that from the
Thank you,
main
Steve
disk.
Jobs.
Right. Partition, it'll give you the option of changing your partition. You can see on this I've got Mac HD 500, which is my 500 gigabyte hard disk, but I've also got Boot Camp, which is my Windows partition on this disk. So I actually separated that into 2 smaller partitions. I can repartition this so that it's half and half. I can add 3 or 4 partitions to this. This is where you would do it. You would click on the disk and start adding partitions, go to your volume scheme and change those. And RAID, it's a little bit more advanced. We'll not go into that, but if you wanted to set up a RAID structure here, you could do that here, or you could go into the restore to get your disk image for restoring your partition.
So for those who are like real newbies here, how do they find the disk utility? Show them that.
Again, it's just back to the Finder, so you can click on any of your disks, go over to Applications, down in the Applications folder to Utilities, and click on Disk Utility, or you can just make it easier on yourself, hit Spotlight and type Disk Utility, and there it is.
Okay,
right.
very good.
So, but it's good to know where it lives either way. So,
Now, you have a very good tip on software installation. Let's talk quickly about that. We're running out of time, by the way.
yeah.
So.
All right. Well, software installation is a little bit of a strange thing. Everyone knows on Windows, if you've done it, you've got an exe file, you click on it, and it goes through the installation process. From the Mac perspective, it's a little bit different. It's similar but different. Generally, you download something called a DMG file, which stands for disk image. So you download it and you click on it.
DMG, okay.
Disk M Edge.
Okay, got it.
All right. So often they'll set it up like this. It's a bit cryptic. It has the icon of the application you want to install, generally, say in this case, Google Chrome.app, and then a little folder below it that says A, which is your applications folder.
Yeah.
So most of the time they set this up so that all you have to do is drag it from one down to the other, and it'll automatically install directly into your applications folder, which is where you want to do
I
this.
thought that was kind of odd. I have to say, coming from the Windows world where you go install, yes, just continue. You actually physically have to drag something from one place to another. I get it conceptually, but it just seems a bit...
Yeah, it doesn't. When you install on Windows, it throws things into a whole pile of different folders. Now, it does that a little bit on the Macintosh, but a lot of cases, these things are self-contained. So the .app file is a package, what they call it, rather than a single file. So it's not an executable file that installs it, but if you hit Show Package Contents, you can see what's all in here. And there's like a whole pile of resources here and all of the application files and where everything goes. So if you drag that all, it looks like a single file, but it's everything you need to run the program. So it makes it very easy to install.
It's like a basket of goodies.
It's a basket of goodies.
Yeah.
You just drag that basket into your applications folder, and hey, it's installed.
Yeah.
So
good.
there you go.
Okay. And finally, I've seen this thing in the, I guess, control panel. What do they call that? The configuration? I don't know what it's called. But anyway, it's that thing where all this control panel analog, and it's called expose and spaces. So
Yeah.
you have a couple tips around that too,
Yeah.
and then we have to go to a break.
Yeah, one really quick thing that I want to mention on installation with the disk image. You notice over in the folder here, before we get away from that, it has Google Chrome. We tried installing the disk image.
Yeah.
It mounted as a disk image, but you'll see it over there. Just click the eject button and it'll go away.
Or Command E.
Command E.
Click on it.
Command eject.
Command E to
Yeah.
eject.
Yeah, so
I
just,
learned that. I'm a clever
there
boy.
you go. So that basically it sets it up as a virtual disk,
Yeah.
a disk image,
Yeah.
and you eject it to make it go away.
Okay.
So we're looking
Expose and
expose and
spaces.
spaces. Okay, so let's go back to the control panel. So expose and spaces, let's do them one by one. They're actually put together here in this single control panel option. So spaces is essentially virtual desktops. So if you're working on a single screen like we often do on notebooks, you'll notice that there's not enough space to do everything you want to do.
Yeah.
So we're going to create virtual desktops instead of a single physical desktop. So you go up to the top here and click Enable Spaces. Now we've got by default 4 virtual spaces, and you'll see at the bottom to activate spaces F8, and to switch between spaces we have Control and the arrow key. So if we want to move to a different space, a virtual desktop, we would click Control, and then we go to the next one. So everything we had up there disappears.
All right. Yeah.
And you'll see the screen up here. We're going between these virtual spaces. Now we can also, while we're here, add them. So we've got rows and columns here. Right now we've got it 2 by 2. Well, we can make it 4 by 4. Now we've got 16 virtual spaces.
Right.
So if you really are a power user and you've got a ton of stuff that you need to do, and you can keep track of which space
I
everything
found this
is
was
in.
easy. You showed me this the other day, and I found this easy. It said always show my email in this particular a space. And
Right.
So just flip over all that, and it doesn't distract me. It's not in the way for the other tasks that I have to do.
Right, so say you've always got a word processor up in one window and you also want to have a web browser in another window, but you don't want them up on the same screen because you have to keep flipping and it's just a gigantic mess. So click the plus and add an application to this. So let's just add something here. We'll go to Firefox, add that in there, and click Add, and say, okay, now I want Firefox always to appear in space 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I am in space 2 here. Let's go back to space 1 on here. Whoops. See, when you get a lot of spaces here, it becomes a little bit hard to keep track
It's hard
of
to
where you are.
manage as you go. You have to remember exactly where you are.
So I'm in space 1, but if I launch Firefox, it'll automatically switch me over to space 2.
Yeah.
Okay, and now everything I do in Firefox will launch in space 2, so it won't be in the same place that I was before. Now you can go over here and change this to any of the spaces that you have open or every space. So if there's something that you always want up no matter where you are, you click it to every space. So for example, your instant messaging program, you always want Skype up or you want AIM up wherever you are, and everything else will just slide out underneath it. So you'll move from space to space, but that will just stay rock solid in place.
Right.
So that's a nice tip for that.
We'll have to take a break. When we come back, give us a couple of quick tips about Expose, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, let's take a break. When we take a message from our sponsor, they pay the bills after all. Check this out when we come back. Sean's final tips about Expose, and of course, your pictures. All right, so you have one final tip for us, I guess, Expose.
Expose. So under the same control panel setting, you have Expose. So you have active screen corners, essentially. So when you move your mouse up into the corner, it'll do certain things. So let's just
like triggers?
It's like triggers. So it's a shorthand for people that like to do this. Now, I'll say I hate this. I do not like this because I'm always moving my mouse all around the screen. And when I had Expose set up, I was always triggering things I didn't want to be like screensaver would come on like, no!
Yeah, Skype comes on.
So let's just say, so we've set the top left screen corner to start screensaver, and we go up there, and as soon as we do that, the screensaver kicks in. That's the sort of thing. I don't need that, but you might find it useful if you've got other things that you want to set up. So you've got a few other things you can, all windows, application windows, basically fly your windows around, go to your dashboard. Some people will find that useful. I do not.
I got that.
All right?
All right. Well, speaking of useful, let's have a look at a recent episode of Pimp My PC. Lucas Cochran is going to show us how to pimp out your spaces on an episode of his show.
Welcome on deck. I'm Matt Harris.
Hi, I'm Jay Goldman.
Welcome to the A-List. Hi, welcome to Miss Download.
So the first thing we're going to do is go to our applications, and we're going to open Spacesuit up. So there it is, and right away you can see that this came up on the fourth space that I had, and so this is a different image, but you can see that desktop background, gone. It's been replaced with this X-Wing fighter, and if I go to my other ones, you'll see that those images are there as well. So pretty quick and easy.
To see the entire episode, make sure you visit butterscotch.com to see all of Lucas in all his glory and all the amazing pimps that he does.
Very good.
All right.
Hey, Paul, our AP, mentioned something during our break that I do want to mention because it is important. We talked about software installation earlier in the show, and when you fire up a disk image and you drag that to your application. Now, some people know that you can drag an application directly into the dock from your applications folder. Some people may be tempted when they fire up the disk image to drag it straight from their disk image folder when they're doing the install straight into the dock.
Yeah.
And then they'll wonder why the program is gone next time they fire up their system. Well, that's because the disk image went offline. It was unmounted. So you want to do this always in a two-step process. Drag it to applications, then drag it from applications into the dock. Don't drag it straight into the dock from your disk image.
And dock is that thing along the bottom, keeps all the icons to quick launch applications.
Yeah, I've got mine on the left, and you can put it on the bottom or the left. So just drag it to applications first before you do that.
Very exciting. Okay, cool.
So,
all right, well, thank you for a great episode. I think we have one picture.
We have one picture today.
Hooray.
And it's not Mac related, but it is our friend Onel.
Onel.
And Onel did something really, really unfortunate.
Oh.
And this is actually the first step to saving this situation. Onel poured coffee into this poor machine.
Oh no.
And needed to replace the keyboard. Now you've poured coffee into your machine, I think.
You know, my MacBook Pro 2 Sundays ago, I poured hot tea into it with sugar, and now it doesn't click properly.
Yeah, so other people may have this problem as well. Onel did, and he's replacing the keyboard in here, in this machine. So he wanted to show us this picture.
That's great.
It was a tragedy, but it is fixed.
Good work. Good work for doing it yourself as well. It makes us very happy to see you doing advanced stuff like that. All right, if you want to send your pictures or send us an email for a future mailbag, you can email us at.
If you're going to pour some hot liquid into your computer, make sure there's no sugar in it. Please, please, at labrats.tv.
A lot to type, but you can more simply send to.
Feedback@labrats.tv.
All right, very good. Great episode, very informative. Thank you so much. On a Friday afternoon here in the Lab Rat Studios at butterscotch.com.
Not necessarily when you're watching it, but what the heck.
As we're shooting it, so. All right, don't forget to visit butterscotch.com for zillions of fantastic tutorials and shows and other episodes of Lab Rats and Miss Download and Mr. Mobile, and it goes on from there. So check that out.
Zillions is a lot of zeros.
It is a lot of zeros, exactly. And of course, 10% off any domain registration or email hosting at hover.com with this coupon code right here. There you go. My name is Andy Walker. It'd be foolish for us to be here if you weren't out there, and he is.
Sean Carruthers.
We'll see you next time.
Check 1 2 1 2. All right.
Because one was off. That's awesome.
Okay. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. A little loud. All right. Sure. Blame the beer. Why don't you blame the beer?